All right, so in place of an intro for this live email, I'm going to give you guys that don't know the scoop about on what's about to happen. See, about a year or so ago, Joe approached me with a proposal. Namely, they both go to Torchbearers. But as most of you know, I've effectively gone to Torchbearers for 2+ years of my life. So I know the ins and outs of the program. And I'm like, yeah, I'll pass. Because even though, yeah, it's a cool thing, you spend like half your time, frankly, doing biblical studies and the other basically quarter doing forced activities. Hence, the actual amount of time you can hang out with people or like change yourself in good and significant ways is actually pretty minimal. Thus, as an alternative, I propose we take the funds we are going to spend on the Torchbearers and organize our own, basically, Torchbearers experience. And this is how it all came to life. Hence, the time for said experience has finally come upon me, and I leave at the time of writing this in approximately 15 days. Now, the goal of the Virtue Retreat is multifold, but one big thing is to try and ditch some vices, and frankly, I've accumulated my fair few, most of which you probably experienced firsthand. So what this all means is I'm going to be attempting to make some serious revisions to my personality, granted in ways I think the vast majority of you will find as an improvement. But nevertheless, change means change, and I don't know what the future holds. In fact, if life and emails don't change in any way, that'd probably be bad. So yeah, basically, I'm just giving you guys a disclaimer that things will be changing for me, and thus life and emails will also likely change. The other thing that's happening is that because of this retreat, I'm taking roughly a 2.5 month hiatus from Life and Emails while I'm gone. Thus, you may begin your weeping, and your life update list lives, are agonizingly near. I know, it's hard for things to look worse, but know that your boundless and indescribable suffering is for good cause. It's for a good cause. Anyway, on to the actual email. See, after last email, I decided to go over to Braden's house, and we played Magic till around 2:30 in the morning. That was a good time. Something you no doubt notice is the frequency of the word magic in this email is quite high. Like the times I mentioned anime on steroids. So, very high. I played a lot of Magic during this time. The next day I went to Neo's and worked on things, after which Caleb and I finally got together and swam a mile. I don't love the fact that by the time I had done like 72 laps, Caleb had done 100. But you know what? Facts are facts, even when they testified how Caleb is better than I am. We then went to Joe's, from whence... And then from there we went to Caleb's house and played Brawlhalla, which Ben accompanies us for, Benj. And then after a brief detour to drop off Benj at his house, we continued through the late night brawl, as is Monday night tradition. The day thereafter, I finished my first solo creation deck, affectionately referred to as the Black Deck, as it uses Swamp Mana cards exclusively, and is focused on making your opponent discard cards, because you can't lose if your opponent can't play. To be fair, that it does do its job pretty well. Pretty brutal in 1v1s, but not much good in a multiplayer game, because you don't have the action economy to make everyone discard. I then went to the Haunted Game Cafe, the resident nerd store for Fort Collins, and bought a box for my deck. See, it was this point that Neo texted me and he was like, good to co-study. So I then changed my plans and headed over to his house, and we did that. It was during said work study session that I finally finished writing down all my memories. All roughly 45,000 words of them. To be fair, there's actually like more than that, but some of the memories are not for the public at large, which I hope strikes you as reasonable. So, that's the length of the version I'm releasing. So if you want to read the vast majority of my memories, which I'm sure all of you just chomping at the bit to do, then here you go. There's a doc link. Other than that, the noticeable things I did that day was Jacob the Jew gave a talk on Judaism at Ratchet Christie, which was probably the funniest talk I've yet heard at Ratchet Christie, but it also bordered on the most uninformative. So, trade-offs. After Ratchet, I headed back to Joe's house and played him in some Magic, and then we drove over to John's house and played some games with him and Braden. The day thereafter, I worked with Neo. We went on a walk, and I'm sure we talked about something at least mildly interesting, but I can't remember what it was. After that, I played Magic with Joe until it came time for us to go to Magic Club, and then Joe and I both played some more Magic until about 11 at night, at which point I felt a bit sick, so I went home. I watched some anime and took a bath. The next day, Neo canceled our co-study time, and so I instead played Magic with Joe until it came time for me and Michael to hang out for about 2 hours. And it was decently good. I learned some cool stuff. After that, I carpooled with Joe to Caleb's house, where we played Brawl, but I mostly just sorted blue Magic cards the whole time, until it was my turn in the tag team version of Brawl we were playing. And then after Caleb's, I did more Magic with Joe before going to bed. The next day was Saturday, and it also happened to be the day I was scheduled for Airsoft, from like 3 months back. So despite 2 rescheduling events, Braden and I drove up the canyon to the Airsoft spot and waited for people to arrive. Well, as you might have guessed, people didn't arrive, and Noah canceled at the last minute. Though we didn't know that for like a solid hour as we waited for people, because it was no cell service. So upon discovering that disheartening truth, Braden and I decided we would enjoy nature for a bit and then head back. See, this actually worked out for me though, because I had like a scheduling conflict since I agreed to participate in a one-shot the very same day, having forgotten that Airsoft was scheduled for that, time, since it was scheduled ages ago. So the whole scenario actually kind of worked out for me, but it was still a big sad. Thus, upon returning back, Braden and I played a quick game of Magic before I left to go for my D&D session, which I participated in. Then after that, Joe and I did more Magic stuff. We then decided to mix it up a bit, and we watched an anime movie called A Silent Voice, and it was so well done. Genuinely a really good movie. So, just saying, highly recommend. The day after that, I journeyed to Southgate upon my grandpa's request to gather some mousel to help him move an armoire, which we did. But the quantity of mousel I gathered turned out to be overkill. I then went to normal D&D, the Campanios, which is, well, sort of running. He's been on and off quite a bit. And then I attended Bible study, as is a Sunday norm. Played some more Magic with Joe thereafter, and then I drove out into the foothills at night to pray. The next day, I spent the afternoon at Neo's working on stuff. I guess it bears mentioning that what I've been working on. See, after writing down all my memories, I've now been spending the time evaluating and examining them. So basically, I'm just doing the whole thing again, but in more depth. So yeah, it's a lot of work. After that, we all, me and the squad, went to the Myers house to work on life history things for like 10 bazillion hours, and it was good. We were all remarkably productive. The next day, I had a brief moment of objective productivity at Neo's, and then the rest of the day was just magic. I sorted cars at Joe's house, skipped Ratio, and sorted more. Taught Joe's mom how to play, then play with Joe's mom and Noah, which I lost it, which was stupid. And then, until late at night, I just played Magic with Joe until like 3 in the morning. The day thereafter, Neo canceled, so I instead tried to teach mom and dad how to play Magic, but boy did they struggle. It's either they just decided beforehand Magic was too complicated for them, and that's why they couldn't get it, or they just genuinely are worse at learning than everyone else. Because I taught like 7 different people now, and I assure you, my teaching methods aren't that bad. Whatever the case, I tried to teach them for about an hour, and eventually just called it quits. I think they understood a good portion of it, but definitely didn't get it all. After that, Dad helped me change my brake fluid, which was a big yay, because ever since I got my car, my brake light would come on when it was cold, and apparently that was because there was a significant amount of air in my lines. So finally, I got that issue fixed, thanks to Dad. After that task, I proceeded to go down to the dungeon and record the last live email before going to Joe's, and you guessed it, playing some more Magic. I then had to come home as Ben's show was announcing the winner, and they wanted a family reaction shot just in case he won. And would you believe it? He actually won. He won the entire show, like a $250,000 contract with Samsung. Like, gosh, why do I bother trying to study engineering when I could just move clay around and take pictures of it? But no, it was quite impressive. And while I was surprised, I was kind of like, yep, should have seen that coming. So yeah, that was like, well, that just happened. And then I went back and played Magic for Joe until like 2:30 at night. The next day, I did some work for my parents, went to Joe's, did magical activity, hung out with Ben as he came back, and then took Joe and Caleb and I out for dinner. We went on a drive with the aforementioned people, and I found myself back at Joe's house playing Magic, presumably. The day after that, I did some more work, and finally got everyone off my Spotify account and onto their own Spotify account, which was way too long in coming. I then fixed one aspect of my car, that I can't remember which, and proceeded to drive to Luke and Rosemary's house, where we kind of just hung out and talked. It wasn't terribly interesting, but it wasn't maximally boring, so I would give the whole experience like a 4 out of 10. After that all went down, people went to bed, and Ben and I hung out together and watched a time travel movie, and it had this really good jalapeno popper pizza. Actually, the best pizza ever. And then we hit the sack around 2 or so that night. That night, I only got like 4 hours of sleep because next was Saturday, which means I woke up early for the book study. And it just so happened COC was doing this orientation thing where if you showed up, you got like $3, 10 free bucks to spend on lunch. Thus, I am technically a new student, but also, you know, a little new student with no need of orientation because I know the campus like the back of my hand. So I very wisely dropped by, grabbed my 10 free bucks, and then ducked out before my book study. However, had I simply cashed out on the money, as people had told me to, aka at the Laureate Student Center, all would have gone smoothly. But since I was, already playing the system, I was like, well, this is RAM cash, so it should work anywhere, right? And the Subway sandwich only costs $8. So if I go to someplace like the Rail Center and get a drink or something like that, then I'll milk this occasion for all it's worth. The only trouble is, no, that is not true. When I walked up to the cashier with my drink in hand and handed her the card, she looked at me like I might be a kid trying to give, Monopoly money for the food, which, to be fair, was essentially very embarrassing because that's effectively what I was giving her. Thus, I walked away from that situation quite embarrassed because I had just watched the person in front of me and just did exactly what he did. And I thought, I looked like I was doing before I came there, but it was very clear I did not know what I was doing. And yeah, the whole situation was a bit traumatizing, but we'll get over it. After that all went down, I got my Subway sandwich and then went back to my house. I stashed the sandwich in my fridge, did my book study call. After that, I hung out with Benj and played some Magic, which Joe joined us for. Before I attended Minecraft night, which I will point out my castle is glorious. Caleb said Liam's is cooler, but that's objectively false because mine is cooler. I mean, here, take a look at these castles and tell me which was cooler. There's my castle. There's Liam's castle. And I'll grant that Katie's castle looks fairly cool, but neither beats my epic castle. I mean, look at this thing. They're like houses and a little river and paths, and it's just the best. So yeah, Caleb, you're wrong. Anyway, after some good old-fashioned castle creation, I then hung out with Joe till about 1 in the morning. The following day, I woke up and Joe arrived at my house, and literally the entire day was just deck building and refinement, except for a brief tour to young adults where we played the bird game, which was actually pretty fun. The day thereafter consisted of Magic, some life history work, then Magic with Noah, Benj, and Caleb and Joe, and I think Karina, till around 10:30. After that, Joe, Caleb, and I kept playing around 2:30 at night, and had some really close games. The next day was just more Magic, some with Joe and Caleb, and then some with Braden and John, so nothing really of note. The day thereafter, I worked at Neo some, got recruited by Joe and Caleb as they showed up at my house and wanted to play some Brawl with them. Then they came with me to Magic Club where we played Magic. Wow, what a shocker. And then after that, Ben, annoyed with our nerddom, took Caleb and I out to get some food and we watched a movie together at Joe's house. And it was decent. I went to Neo's again the next day, at which point I found John was actually there, so that was a pleasant surprise. So me and him went out to get some Taco Bell before I had to split to go to the Myers house since Karina was having us all watch a play. However, before we left, I got the opportunity to build a beautiful bow sword prototype out of Lego, which everyone universally and univocally agreed was the best thing they've ever seen. It's not true. After that, I watched a play about the Pilgrim's Progress, which was admittedly well done, especially for a small theater group, but definitely still cheesy at points. Though the demons were really good. Turns out Christians make really high-quality demons. Once I got home, I was scheduled to call Jordan, but Ben engaged me in his bi-yearly spontaneous deep talk, so I had to call Jordan later, which was postponed for like an hour or so. And then when I did get on, Jordan was deeming what he called a spat with his girlfriend, so we decided it would be best to reschedule because he was kind of moody. Thus, Ben and I continued to talk about our deep annual or biannual conversation, and also light a fire in a cave, of which here's a picture. Look at that cave fire. Okay, but it really is cool in person, especially because it's blue. So yeah, we did that until late at night, and then I went to bed. The next, I would say morning, but let's be honest, by the time I woke up, it was afternoon. The next afternoon, I did a bit of work around the house. I played Magic with Joe before carpooling with David and driving to Wyoming. The car was probably the best part of the trip, I must say, because David was probably the most vulnerable I've ever seen him, and that's why we had a pretty good conversation. Once we got there, we had some pizza around a fire before playing Jackbox games, which I never really loved, but, I did decent at it, so that made it better. It then turned out that Sam's roommate had a Quest 1, so I got to show the world how much better I was at Beat Saber than everyone else, and we all took turns playing Super Hot, which I was also significantly better at, because, I've memorized every level. After that, we engaged in Nerf War, which quickly devolved into a let's get into a pitch black room with sound-sensitive lights and then set up a random timer so that when it goes off, the lights come on and we all shoot each other game. Honestly, it was quite fun, though. And then that night continued to wear on and devolved into a pillow fight and baby wrestling, which persisted for like an hour or more, until Sam's now thoroughly drunk roommate came home and upon seeing the wrestling, jumped in, except he was going all out. So yeah, he headlocked Sam and Sam tapped out, but he, then tried to take me out, and I basically got control of his head and helped him for like 5 minutes until he struggled. And he was like, we should call it a draw, to which I agreed. Turns out if you take 3 months of wrestling as a freshman, that gives you enough experience to be the average Joe. Well, except for Joe, because he's not the average Joe, so my statement still stands. After that all went down, I slept on the couch and got like 6 hours of sleep, so not great, but not the worst. When the sun rose, I decided to play Beat Saber by myself until everyone woke up because there wasn't much else to do. However, Austin, Sam's roommate, had a lot of the songs that you could buy, which I didn't, so it was actually a lot of fun. It also allowed me to gauge my objective skill level since they were all new songs. And I would probably say I'm expert plus fast player, not an expert plus super fast player. There were some songs I could beat on super fast, and a few I could beat only on expert plus. But most were expert plus fast, so that's where I would say my skill set probably lies. Once everyone was up, Sam and his girlfriend took us out for a tour of Wyoming college campus, except it was the worst and most boring tour I've ever experienced. His girlfriend must have just felt like an intense need to fill the silence because, man, it was the most uninformative tour imaginable. Like, we walked past a dinosaur statue, and she'd be like, and that's a statue of a dinosaur. And we walked past the library, labeled library in big letters, and she'd be like, and that's our library. I checked out a book from there once. And yeah, it was just the absolute worst. After that, we headed back, and as I had a D&D thing to get to, the drive was just mostly listening to music and silence, but that was nice. I then played D&D and tried to do a PvP, but it turns out when you build a super speed long-range character and John just summons 16 snakes around you, then you lose. Oh, and also, Jeremy's map traps you in a pit with all the stakes. Even better, Anyway, after I got home, I took a bath, played some Minecraft with the Ratchet Christie folks, stopped biking supers for some kettle popcorn, and then slept. The following day, I played D&D, went to Bible study, and then attended Young Adults for some reason I can't recall. But I got to witness Jake ramble for like 2+ hours, which was mildly interesting. I then played Magic with Joe, and then Joe and John, and then just Joe again until late at night, and then I slept. The next day was Monday, so back at Neo's and back on the self-discovery grind. I then went to Joe's, played Magic with him. Then I went with Caleb and Noah, and then I went and played with Caleb and Noah until Ben gave us a call and convinced us to play hide and seek in the Old Town Square, which was actually pretty fun. The first game, I found this like epic hiding place between a piano where people didn't find me for like 30 minutes, and after which it was ruined because you really weren't supposed to, emphasize the hiding part, just the running part. But they didn't like looking for me for that long, so I don't think it was ruining it. I think it was just, playing the game. So then, of course, that was it. However, because I'm the fastest one among us, just barely, I was able to catch everyone pretty quickly after they found me. And in the last game, Ben and I were the last ones left, and Caleb decided to go after Ben, so I ended up winning, which, really we tied, though. So yeah, it was a good game and a good time. After we hit up Macca's, and I got 2 Big Macs for the price of 1, which is pretty excited about, because let's be honest, those are pretty darn good, and that was a good deal. And then after that, I went back to Joe's house, played some more Magic with Joe, and then Joe, Caleb, and I had a fantastic Magic game, super close. The following day, I went to Neo's once more, worked on some CSU stuff instead of doing life history stuff, because college is a thing. I then watched some Clone Wars with Neo, as working through that. I then played some Magic with Joe and Noah before going to Ratchet Christie and sorting my green cards during the talk. Then, having sorted the green cards, I then went back to Joe's and fought him with my new reformed green deck. After that, I went to Neo's for more work and read some of the first stories I ever wrote for my life history purposes, which was pretty cringy, but also substantially informative. I then hung out with Joe and played Magic, and went to Magic Club and played Magic. I went home and talked with Jordan. The next day was more of Neo's, which ended when I went to pick up Joe, so he could get his car from the mechanic. And then me and him just stayed up playing Magic till like 1:30 at night. And I finally finished sorting everything, which was a big yay, but it actually took so long. The day thereafter, I woke up early, for me at least, to help Karina haul some stuff to this art fair thing. But honestly, she didn't need us at all. There were like 7 things in total, and regardless of the objective utility of our attendance, apparently had emotional utility for her, so who knows? Maybe it was worth it. After helping her out with that, we had enough time to kill, so Noah came over to Joe's, and we all played Magic for a bit. I then built an artifact deck, fought with said deck, watched a movie for Friday movie night, mostly because it was free pizza if you stayed. After that, I fought with Benj and Joe in more Magic. The next afternoon, again, afternoon for aforementioned reasons, I dug a deep hole for a fence post because the fence blew over. I then played a 5-person Magic game somewhere with some people, doing that until Saturday Night Minecraft, during which Liam and I watched some SAO Abridged, which was more crass than I liked, but I lived. And then after that, we ran out the night with some anime guessing. Ha! You thought I was going to say Magic. The next day was Sunday, and it turned out Easter Sunday, which I had no idea which day that was. So when I went to the Wades then I went to Wades for their traditional Easter party. We did an Easter egg hunt, like the days of old, but other than that, it was quite uneventful. After that, I went to Neo's for Bible study, which was decent, and then I played some Halo, after which I headed over to Joe's and we played some Magic and some anime chess, and I crushed him in anime chess. That was a good feeling. More work at Neo's the next day, sprinkled with a bit of Halo. I then went over to Joe's and worked on life history things with the squad before playing some Magic with Jake and Benj in addition to the squad. After that, Joe and I had a brief talk where I tried to convince him to interpret his memories, but apparently he wasn't convinced. Neo's the next day, then some Clone Wars. I taught Neo to play Magic, and he enjoyed that. I went over to Joe's, and he had just received cards for his Big Boy deck, which I then fought and lost to. I then went to Rashu and listened to a pretty trash Jehovah's Witness talk. Played some more Magic back at Joe's house, and then Ben recruited us to go play the game we used to play on the CSU with the cousins on the CSU. The one where one group's walking around, I have to find them in the obscure pictures they send. And it was pretty fun, mostly because the roles were reversed. So for once, I was the one hiding, and Ben and Caleb were the ones seeking. Joe, Noah, and I lasted the entire time without getting caught, which I think is decently impressive, though Joe was absolutely exhausted by the end of it. After all that, we met at McDonald's and played poker, which I found super boring. But everyone else had a decent time, I think. Though Noah didn't accompany us for that. He had to go to bed. I gotta say, Ben's suggested for activities really have been making things more interesting. I always, don't really want to move from my comfortable spot, but so far I haven't been disappointed in changing things up. The next day was Wednesday, so Neo's Magic Club and the standard things. During Magic Club, I got bullied to death a few times. I stepped out, caught up with William, which was really good. He's a legend, that William. Then after Magic Club was over, I went to Joe's and we played some more Magic. This time, I fared significantly better. The day after that, I helped Neo and Alan fix Neo's car. Alan, as in Neo's Alan. See, his brakes were pretty shot, so I agreed to do the job for half what the mechanic would charge. It was a pretty good deal for both of us. So yeah, we got the parts, ate some food, and watched some Clone Wars. I then fixed the car in record time. After that all went down, I proceeded to go to Joe's house for a squad work life history meetup, which went well. I'm getting there, even though it's slow going. After working on that for a while, I wanted to drive with Joe, and that was pretty good too. The next day, I was bribed with food to go pick up Alan from his work out in the boonies, since he doesn't have a car. So Nina and I did that, and then Alan got me Taco Bell, which was the yum. We were going to hang out after that, but the whole endeavor had taken a lot longer than I predicted, so we had to call it, as it was like 6 in the evening, and I actually participated in a Magic tournament. See, there are a lot of Magic the Gathering cards, roughly 22,000 plus. Thus, they release new cards, quite often. And when they do, game stores hold what's called a pre-release, which is basically where you pay $30 and get $30 worth of cards, and you have to build a deck from the random cards you received. Then, once you've built your deck, you can then fight other people's decks, and if you win, you get more cards. So yeah, did that. Started off really strong in one of the first 3 rounds. I played 2-0 because the games were the best out of 3, sorry. But that moved me up to first place, so I then played the guy who won the whole thing last year and lost twice. The second game, I was 1 HP from winning the game. And we did play afterwards just for fun, and I actually did win. And then after playing that, I played this girl who got, 3rd last year, so I ended up 11th out of 37 in the end. Which isn't trash, mind you. I still got 3 packs for placing as I did. And, I'm a little bit sad I didn't get higher, but yeah, oh well. So yeah, that was really fun. The only trouble was, it was supposed to end at 11, and the whole Neo Fred group was going to go stargazing, but as I suppose I should have expected, it actually went until 12:30, which meant that we didn't get on the road for stargazing until 1. It was hectic and a bit of a letdown. I forgot my tarp. We couldn't go to the mountains to get away from the light pollution because the drive would take too long and the clouds were covering the stars. So overall, just pretty trash stargazing conditions. But nevertheless, everyone had a good attitude and made the best of it, and it was a good time. So yeah, we got back around 3, which was pretty standard for me, but everyone else was pretty wiped. The next morning, I had to wake up at 10, not 8 for the book study, so that was so much better. Then after doing book study things, I went to another pre-release where I won 2 games, 2-0, and then lost 1-1-2, which was close. But yeah, didn't take the top spot again. Joe got 2 wins and a draw, so he technically did better than me, but I think the guy that beat me was just really good. After that, I went to Joe's and we sorted out some of our winnings as Benj came over. As Benj came for Jake's surrogate, because Jake fell ill. He was going to come to Magic Tournament with us, but he didn't. And he decided he wouldn't keep his cards in return for us covering the cost of his attendance. We did that for about an hour before I had to go pick up people from John's house, as I was the designated driver for Jeremy's birthday, at which alcohol was consumed. So yeah, we get there, forgot the stuff we were supposed to bring, went back, grabbed the stuff, and then basically I just played Magic with Neo in the corner while the rest had a good time. The sober, person of choice is Neo. And while they did whatever their drunk hearts desired, me and Neo were just like, we're going to play Magic. I will say, though, they were much less entertaining this time, which is a bit of a sad. So yeah, that all went down, and the party ended at 12, so it was a reasonable hour to end, thankfully. After that, I kind of was tired from half babysitting, and I took a bath when I got home before sleeping. Thereafter, Joe revamped his deck, and thus playing against it became a massive pain, so that was great. I then attended Bible study at Neo's. We played the CSU game again. This time, I was it, and I found Ben and Caleb way easier than they found me. Also, Joe is so easy to spot from far away. See, because he doesn't like running, he kind of just participated as like a Pokemon going NPC, which gave either me or the Ben Caleb team a bonus if he was found by us. But I always found him first because he was just so easy to recognize. Like his shoulders, you can see them from a distance. But yeah, that was good. We called that around 12 because Caleb was feeling pretty done. After that, Joe and I went back to his house and played some Magic, which was fun. Monday, I worked on CSU orientation things in the morning, and since Neo had canceled that day, I had the time to teach Grace how to play Magic, which she picked up decently well, but I don't think she liked it. I then did some classic Monday night stuff, though originally I was going to do something for Neo for his birthday, but he just wasn't feeling up to it. Tuesday, I worked on Neo's car with Alan, and with him as well. We flushed the coolant and changed his battery. I then hung out with Joe, Noah, and Caleb instead of attending Ratio since the speaker was canceled. We did some Brawlhalla until Karina came, and then we did life history work. Noah actually finished his life history during this time, so yay for him, but sad for me because now there's less incentive for life history meetups. The next day, I woke up a little bit earlier than normal and worked on my car. I thought it needed to change the brakes, but I was wrong, so I did a bit of work for nothing. But I did find out my rear caliper was only half bolted in, so that was good to discover. I also did get my oil changed, so that was good too. I then visited the dentist because I've been having this weird pain in my jaw. Off and on, but the dentist told me it wasn't something that was in my teeth. It was just, not a dental issue, apparently. I then did some life history work, went to Karina's house, we waited for Noah and Caleb to arrive, and in doing so, played a new version of ping pong with Ben using the ceiling, which was surprisingly fun. However, I accidentally smacked the ceiling a few times, so we figured we should stop. We just played normal ping pong after that, until we decided to play some Magic with Joe. Finally, after that, we started talking about some things, and Karina brought the, how fat are you scale, which is really interesting. And apparently my reading is fat, but could be fatter. Here are my stats. Which is understandable, since I haven't been exercising in the last 2 years. Now, a distinct goal of the trip is for me to get my reading back to the standard. The next day, Neo and I got together to dump our oil and coolant at the recycling center, after which I fought Neo in Halo and did not limit my loadout to a DMR and sniper for the first time, and actually beat Neo, so that was a good feeling. I might stop, restricting myself in games just because winning is a good feeling. I went over to Joe's, played Magic, Karina came over, and we worked on life history things, and then when she left, Joe and I played some more Magic, and then unfortunately, as I was leaving Joe's, I got a ticket, which was mega sad. I went to Neo's, as per usual the next day. I did a bit of book reading that I needed to do for the upcoming book Bible study. I then did some life demo work, played with John and Neo in Halo, and then played Magic with John, Braden, and Neo until around 2:30, and that was fun. We did a team game to end it all out, and I brought my counterspell deck, and I just bullied Neo and Braden. It was beautiful. The next morning, I woke up early for the book study, though it was at 10 instead of 8, which is way better. I then worked around the house for a bit, hung out with Dad for some, and almost beat him in the best out of 3 out of 5. That doesn't make sense. Ping pong games. I will take his title soon enough. After that, I talked with Mom and Dad about how housing would work during college for me. And that was good. I talked with Liam, and we had some anime grass quizzes, and I got effectively crushed, and that was a big sad. After I went to Joe's and played Magic again and got crushed, which was also a big sad, and then went home and slept. Yesterday, I woke up early because we were supposed to present at Southgate as they were announcing our trip to church, but we didn't even have to go up because my attendance we didn't even have to go up in the end, so it turned out my attendance was pretty unnecessary. I then stuck around for lunch bunch, after which Joe and I went over to Myers and we played Magic. Then, since Joe had to leave, I went to the basement and built some Lego with Seth and Bench. I made this little robot man, which I don't think is too bad for a hour-ish build. I then went over to Neo's for Bible study. We did a Bible study walk, and I got to hear Jeremy's tales of his childhood experience of fire and brimstone preaching. Then after that, we played a bit of Halo, and I came home and took a bath, and then went to bed early, as I was pretty tired. As for today, I woke up after sleeping 12 hours, did this, and that's all she wrote. Sorry, I know this life of emo isn't as fleshed out as some, but I'm leaving for the trip in 2 weeks, and I'm feeling the time squeeze, so it's a rush a bit, Still, it's here, and it's done, so I deserve a gold star nonetheless.